Carol Browner, our visitor today, has had a long and storied career in environmental advocacy. After heading to Florida's Department of Environmental Regulation in the early 1990s, Carol became the longest-serving administrator of the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, serving over Bill Clinton's 2 terms in office. During her tenure, Carol repeatedly defended EPA standards, expanded the Clean Air Act, and initiated the Brownfields program to clean up contaminated sites, among many other successes. When President Obama created a White House Office of Energy and Climate Change, he appointed Carol as its director, where she became known as the Climate or Energy Czar. Out of Washington, Carol has worked extensively between business and government, consulting with transnational corporations around environmental strategies and compliance. Carol has been Glamour Magazine's Woman of the Year and won Lifetime Achievement Awards from both the South Florida chapter of the Audubon Society and the New York State Bar Association. Please join me in welcoming Carol Browner to the Putney School.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you guys? It's Friday, right? Yeah. That's a good day? How many of you milked cows this morning? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. A fun fact about cows, you wouldn't think I would know about cows, but I do. 80 pounds of manure a day. That becomes an environmental problem in places like Texas and Florida where we have a lot of cattle. But before we talk about environmental problems, let me just talk a little bit about myself. And let me start by saying, Jim, it's an honor to be with a landscape painter. I started, I think, my passion for the environment because of landscape. I grew up in Miami, Florida. I grew up on the, thank you. I grew up on the edge, the margins of the Everglades, and went there virtually every weekend of my childhood. And it is an amazing landscape. People from the Rockies and up here tend to say, oh, but there are no mountains. Yeah. We do have mountains in Florida. When you're out in the Everglades, when you're on that landscape of swamp and in that beautiful serene place, our mountains are the clouds that roll in and form the boundaries of our landscape. And so I hope you all take the time to visit Jim's landscape paintings because it can be, I think, very inspiring. And for me, it launched a career in environmental protection. As you heard, I have served 2 presidents, 2 senators, 1 governor. I have run a department that had 15,000 people. I had $7 billion, that's a B, dollars to spend every year. I have made decisions that were argued all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States. The toughest decision I ever made was about air pollution. I won in the Supreme Court 9-0. I would not win today. I would throw that out. Different court today than it once was. But the reason I did all of that was because I am passionate about protecting our environment. And what does it mean to protect our environment? It means to protect the air we breathe, the water we drink, our land, and most importantly, the communities where we live. And that has been what I have done throughout my career. Now let me ask you a question. How many of you have ever gotten up in the morning, gone over to your kitchen faucet to get a glass of water, make a pot of coffee, turned on the faucet, and there was no water? Any of you? We have a few. In Jackson, Mississippi, they have had 300 times that the water did not come on. Jackson, Mississippi is a predominantly black town, a black city. It is a predominantly poor city. And right now I am representing the NAACP. Does anyone know what that is? Because we have sued the state of Mississippi for discriminating against the people of Jackson, Mississippi, for failing to give them the dollars they need to give their citizens clean water. And what we are doing is somewhat novel. We are not using an environmental law to do this. We are using the Civil Rights Act passed in the 1960s. It is the reason we integrated schools. It is the reason we integrated businesses. It is the reason that people of color have justice. And so we are very hopeful that we will be able to demonstrate that discrimination on an environmental basis, on a drinking water basis, is as important as any other kind of discrimination. We are in the middle of that lawsuit. We will see where it goes. But as I think about the work that perhaps some of you will do in the future that you will embrace as you leave this institution, thinking about environmental protection, not just the way I thought about it when I started my career 30, 40 years ago, air, water, land, but thinking about it as a justice issue. Thinking about how, as we address the issues of climate change, carbon pollution, we think about how to do it in a just and equitable manner. There are communities all over this country that get referred to sometimes as fence line communities. You guys know what a fence line community is? It is a community, almost always poor, frequently of color, that sits next to the fence of a polluting facility. Those people, and that facility might be in compliance with all of its environmental requirements, but nevertheless, there is pollution. Those people in the fence line communities share a disproportionate burden of our modern lifestyle. All of the things being made in those facilities, whether it's an Intel chip, whether it's plastics, all of the things that give us modern conveniences are made in facilities that inevitably have some pollution, and the communities who live next to them suffer disproportionately. When we think about climate change inevitably is impacting and will impact, again, poor communities in the first instance. As we look around the world, we already see low-lying nations, which tend to have a lower economic reality, experiencing climate change. We're starting to see what we call climate migrants, people having to leave their villages, their towns, because there is no longer the fresh water they need. There is no longer the land to farm. But even here in the United States, we see communities, again, frequently poor, of color, experiencing climate change first. So go back to Mississippi, to Jackson, Mississippi. The issue we're dealing with is about their tap water. So your tap water comes from a river, lake, a stream, an aquifer, right? It comes up, it gets treated, it comes over to your tap. I live here in Vermont too. Ours comes from our well to our kitchen. But basically there's a system. Then when it leaves your sink, it goes into the sewer. And it gets treated, and the water, hopefully clean, gets discharged back into a river, lake, or stream. It has to go somewhere. So there's a cycle that gets created. What is happening in Jackson, Mississippi is that water system, drinking water, that tap water, was not maintained. And that's what we're litigating. But what we have found is as the pelting, drenching climate change storms come in Jackson, Mississippi, which they are coming more and more frequently now, very sudden, these outbursts of just these torrential rains. You saw them in California earlier this year, or like a few weeks ago. The sewer system in Jackson, Mississippi floods. It can't take it all. And that seeps into the drinking water system. So while we started by thinking about people's tap water, we now realize we have to think about climate change. That we cannot simply solve the tap water question without solving the sewer question. And we can't solve the sewer question without thinking about climate change. And that is a story I can tell over and over again across the country. And as you all think about the education you're getting, the opportunities, you have the privilege, you have, I hope you will find time. It's probably hard to think about your careers yet, but as you begin to think about careers, about how to be a part of making the transition to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, reducing our carbon footprint in a just and equitable manner. Because if we only do it for some, we have not done it properly. That would not be in any way fair. Now, one thing that I wanted to mention before I take questions from you. I have, as you heard, basically spent my life in public service. Today, that is not considered aspirational by some. It is not considered, you know, where you want to end up. People want to go and do other things. But if you care about the environment, if you care about justice and equity, public service is an amazing opportunity. And it doesn't have to be just working for the government. When I wanted to do environmental protection, the best place to do it was the government. And so I went there, and presidents picked me to do things, and governors picked me to do things. But today, you can go work for an NGO. There are many of them. There were about 2 when I started doing this. You could go work for a corporation. I do a lot of work with companies that are at the cutting edge of reducing their climate impacts, investing in the new generation of technologies. And so I just hope, as you begin somewhere down the road to think about a career, you will realize the immense opportunities you will have as someone with this kind of education and privilege and opportunity to be part of how we build a better, not just a better community, a better country, and a better world. I will tell you, it has been the greatest honor in my life. I am very privileged. I get to get up, and I have, since I left law school at the age 23, and go to work thrilled every day that I am working to do this kind of work. And that is the best thing any life can give you. So thank you all for the opportunity to be here, and I'm happy to take some questions.